with that being said, let's move on and let's actually talk about lists for newer players or players rejoining and wanting to kind of play in the league. Now, the first thing I'm going to mention is these lists are not built to be ultra competitive. Just as an FYI, we are circumventing some of the rules that we had talked about in our previous segment. But do not fear. The idea behind this is not that we're going to completely ignore the ideology behind it. We're going to take that now, that ideology, and actually apply it to list building for newer players and for people that want to just start getting back into the game. So if you played 1.0 and you hadn't played anything else, and now you want to play 2.5, welcome. Here is a little bit more about it. So we're going to start off with a few principles, right? So I built this list, and I'm going to take a little pride because I actually kind of want to run this list now. Not that I think it'll be insanely good, but I do think that this list for a beginner player, for newer players coming into the game, would be very easy to fly. And what it does is it helps you allow the people you're playing with to help you remember your trigger. So one of the things that we do is like when we have a new person show up to League and they kind of say, hey, I haven't played a lot or we haven't played before. The idea is you don't like let them just fail completely and fall on their ass. You don't do that. What you do is you go through the list, you let them, if they built their own list and they want to fly their own list, you play it with them. And then what you do is you offer advice. So like, I'll tell you a couple of times where somebody has done like a 3 hard that has 100% would bump my thing. And they already have the target lock. So you know that they're going for, that procket shot or that, ATP shot. So what you do is you say, hold on, just back it up. Do a 2 bank instead of the 3 bank, and you'll be able to get it off. And I've done that more times, and I've still definitely lost. But I feel that when you create lists for newer players and different things like that, some of the idea behind it is how can you make it somewhat competitive so they want to come back and play, but also be easier for your opponent to help you with the triggers as well as yourself. So this is the first list that I kind of built with Ahsoka, Luke, Dutch, and Shara Bey. And the only reason is that I could not find an I4 or a I5 that was 4 points. So I'm not 100% sure. Maybe there is a better one than Dutch. But the idea behind this list is you have Ahsoka, Luke, Dutch, and Shara Bey. And so here's the deal, right? So with Ahsoka, how many times do you coordinate? Well, you have to be very careful when you coordinate. And with Luke, I know that what they really wanted to do was give you R2-D2 and proton torpedoes, right? But who wants to with R2-D2? Who wants to use R2-D2 on Luke? I don't think I've seen it in any play. So like I get that it's in fairness, it's like, oh my God, we could be iconic, but at the same token, it's like really it makes Luke, in my opinion, it makes Luke worthless to some extent, right? Compared to what Luke could be. So the way I build, go ahead.
Yeah. R2-D2 on Luke. When you're using that, you're probably losing the game. That's my opinion of it.
Yeah. And it's only because R2-D2 has to take an action to do the repair, so now you've just lost your action. And like what Luke's not designed technically to be there to take a bunch of actions. Now, I will say if R2-D2 was like 2 or 3 points, okay, maybe we would consider it because you could put a coordinator in there, you could put Fen in there, that type of a thing. The other idea behind this, as we kind of go through these lists, is what are some iconic things? Ahsoka Tano's very iconic, right? Very, very iconic. Luke Skywalker. I'm sorry, you're right. It's a disarm. Yeah, I'm sorry, Deslin. You're right. It's a disarm, which is even worse, actually.
Yeah, exactly. You take all the punch out of Luke.
Yeah, Luke goes, oh, I'm not gonna, and I don't think there's a lot of ships that can take disarm tokens in Rebels. Whereas, like, if you were in Republic, you could, but we don't get Luke in Republic, obviously. Thank God. So anyway, so the idea with this list, right, is you have Ahsoka Tano, Brilliant Evasion, Elusive, and Instinctive Aim, right? Think about it this way. You have defensive mods, which keeps that ship around longer. So We know newer players are probably going to take Ahsoka Tano and be like, ooh, I've got some missiles, I'm going to kill something. And they're not going to use the outmaneuver piece as much. Right? But this allows me as a playing against you to say, hey, you have 3 force. You don't have to coordinate. Think about, you can now shoot a missile without taking a target lock. You could take your evade. Think about it. Oh, you now have brilliant evasion. You can spend a force to make sure your ship lives as long as it's not in bullseye. And you have elusive. Then I do the same thing with Luke. I take the instinctive aim so that it allows them, if they forget to take a target lock, and I forget to tell them, they can use instinctive aim to shoot a proton torpedo. Not as effective, but still allows them to roll big dice. You get the R3, so you get the 2 locks. So if they do remember to take a target lock, you're immediately going, hey, here's 2 ships you could take target locks on. Make sure you take your second target lock. And then you can actually help guide them. Because again, like, think about it this way. When you're playing that CIS list we were talking about, do they really want to target lock anything else? Well, if they can reach Jango, put the damn thing on Jango. Do it. Break that FTC. And then you get to have a whole conversation about what FTC does. It also works very well with Dutch, because once Dutch takes his target lock, somebody else gets to take one. And if you have R3, you're taking a second one. So between Dutch and Luke, there's 4 target locks for them to be taking. And then you have Shara Bey, which I think, in my opinion, Shara Bey is a little bit underplayed. But Shara Bey essentially says when you defend or perform a primary attack, you can spend a lock that you have on an enemy ship to add 1 eyeball result to your dice. So here you go. Here's Dutch. She's got our R3. Dutch is taking a lock, gives a lock to Shara Bey. Shara Bey gets to take a second damn lock. And then now you get to spend that 1 lock when you shoot if you don't need it, right? So it just makes and again, sorry, I know I've gone on for a little while, but what this does is this list gives a lot of options for newer players, and then helps them start learning what different triggers are. All right, guys. Now your guys' thoughts, or we can move on to the next one.
Yeah, I definitely like it a lot. Definitely having that interaction between the ships, being able to like allow different pieces to help make other pieces better throughout the list, is definitely, that's really, really iconic for this particular faction. Rebels are it's part of their theme. It's just having that handshake between them to allow them to be more effective, by granting either additional tokens or actions for them. This is a really good list to allow for that interaction to happen. It is really particularly strong. For a newer player, definitely this is a type of list that makes it fun, because you have so many things that can happen, and just walking that newer player step by step to allow them to get familiarized with those interactions, can definitely make the game very fun.
Yeah, one thing I do like to introduce newer players to is like getting used to like similar initiative ships. So like I like this list because you have 2 pilot skill 4s and then 2 pilot skill 5. So they get used to like having 2 ships where like they can kind of pick and choose who they want to activate first. If they're flying really close to each other, they get used to that flying and positioning where they want to put their ships. So I think that's really good. Also, again, this is kind of like perfect for, like you were saying, you have a lot of triggers that a lot of target locking and figuring out where you want those target locks to go. So like it introduces them to where to put tokens, basically.
Yep. And I'll be honest with you, I actually think I might put that on the table. Like, unfortunately, I think this week we're playing Jankless, so I can't put this on the table. But like I do kind of want to actually test that out and put it on the table. All right. The next piece, or kind of the next caveat to it, and is when we talk about lists for newer players, is JJ said, "Hey Chris, what happens if a player doesn't want to own all of the rebels?" Right? When we go back to my list and we kind of look at some of the, if we forget the upgrades for 30 seconds here, right? Chopper Elizabeth Lors. We think about it, this is, essentially 4 types of ships. So you're buying 4 individual packs for this, right? It's a little bit different. So JJ said, well, Chris, what if I build a few lists that help incorporate buying maybe one or two of the actual packs to help reduce some of the costs for startup players. And I said, hey, that's a great idea, except for he has R2D2 in the stand thing. And I don't understand. We're going to let him explain why he thought R2D2 was a good choice.
Sure. So I'll start off with this particular caveat here for this list. Is this particular list is built using the core set, the T65 expansion to get a second X-Wing, and the Falcon, the Millennium Falcon pack to have the Millennium Falcon. So this list is Han Solo, Wedge Antilles, and Luke Skywalker. Han rolling with Selfless, and that's just a 2-point filler. Leia Organa to allow all those ships to be able to do those red maneuvers and not take that stress, since it reduces the difficulty of it. R2D2, which actually helps Han Solo stay alive, and I'll come to that interaction in a bit. Engine upgrade in case Han needs to get out of a bad spot when he's moving, and the Millennium Falcon title in the event they decide to take an evade token. So the Han Solo's ability, for newer players that are not familiar with his ability, is that if you're a range one of an obstacle, you get to re-roll dice. Now, it's not limited to just the attack or defense portion of it. It's anytime you need to roll dice. So if you overlap an obstacle, if you in this option, in this case, R2D2, when you need to roll a dice for triggering his ability, if you happen to roll the bad effect, which I believe is a focus result, you can use Han's ability to re-roll that, so that way you can avoid triggering the negative side of R2D2, and that way you can essentially give Han a regenerating shield every turn as long as Han is damaged. So that's the interaction there with R2D2 and Han Solo. I built this list mainly because I want it to be iconic. The X-Wings and the Millennium Falcon are the two ships that are very, very recognizable, especially since they've been shown repeatedly throughout the actual movies from the original trilogy, the Millennium Falcon probably being the most iconic out of all the ships. And it's something that I think that a player who's getting into the game would like to fly, because it's very iconic, and this can also be pretty fun to fly. There's a lot of power with the proton torpedoes on both Luke and Wedge, and there's a lot that they can do to try to take out their opponent in this particular build.
Yeah, and I'm sure there's a lot of different options you could do with like putting stuff on Han, but I like your theory. Like I like the reason why you built this list. It's like this is really only giving you like the Millennium Falcon pack. You're only buying the Millennium Falcon pack, and then 2 X-Wings, right? Oh, and the core set, of course, because like core set is the one that comes with. Yeah, so yeah, that's fine. That's good to start off with, to be honest.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I definitely had to give Nick Sperry credit for this one, because the second this came up, I'm like, yep, Nick Sperry's list. But just not having all the upgrades available to you from the Rebel conversion kit does hamper your choices quite a bit. But if you just have that core set, that T65 and the Millennium Falcon pack, you can have this build here, and it can do quite a lot of work. So yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right, moving into Empire. So this was a list, ironically, that I had built kind of back in 2.0 days with Vader Defender, and they originally were 4 Academy ties. So back in 2.0 days, you had 4 ties and 2 and Vader Defender. Now we get Vader Defender and 5 ties, which is just ludicrous to me, but it allows you to do that. Now, you're going to notice here I did not go with Jingos, and I'm going to say that there's 2 reasons I didn't put a Wampa in here, and 2 reasons I did not put a Jingo in here. So I believe Jingoists are going to go up in price. I'm actually 95% sure they're going to go up in price. If not this points change the next one, but I just can't see them not going up in price. So that was part of the reason to not include them. They also don't have a talent slot, which when we talk about for newer players, what is a great thing to have? Elusive. What's a good thing to have for long-term players like me as well, who hate rolling green dice? Elusive. Because I'll tell you how many times I need elusive to live, it seems.
Yeah.
And when they're droids, you don't care. When they're not droids, you get a little bit more pissy about it. So again, this is probably not the most ideal list, but I feel that this is a competitive enough list. You're gonna get to throw some dice. Valen Rudar is, again, it's an I3. It's in there to help introduce people to other stuff, right? But it's really like Valen could easily be replaced by a Black Squadron Ace. It doesn't. You don't have to have them in there. The only difference is it helps you teach them the wording on there, right? So after a friendly ship at range 0 to 1 defends, after damage is resolved, you may perform an action. So it gives them the ability to have a little bit more punch, right? And helps with that target priority. And then it helps, with Iden. So you could kind of run these 5 ships in a block and put Vader on the opposite side and then kind of go from there. And Vader, yep, I know Vader's probably should have juke on him, but how many times do you want, does a new player going to have to go, well, I should spend that, or, we'll forget it. And I will tell you, I hate juke so much, I forget juke half the time, so I don't like having to try to remember juke. So personally, for me, it was an easy conversation to move away from the juke. Giving them the HLC or cluster missiles allows them to make the choice of, do I want to try and line up a bullseye and get that off, or do I want to just use cluster missiles and be close and murder things? It gives options.
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying. Valen Rudar teaches them how to do stuff like between attacks, because he's definitely not going to, you would not normally fire at Valen Rudar first. It's usually one of your other buddies or whatever, maybe Iden getting shot or Darth Vader getting shot or something. But yeah, you can trigger Valen, and then I would maybe switch up how much is a pattern analyzer? Is it 5? Okay, never mind. That would be my only would have been my only change, but if it's 5, it's too much.
How often are you doing red maneuvers with Defender Vader?
Yeah,
not very often, but if you don't have juke on him, it does provide options.
I mean, and you could dump the Hever Lazy cannon, right, and just and put pattern analyzer on right here, and keep your cluster missiles, or you could keep the heavy laser cannon. You could do either.
Yeah.
And then you get a spot for a talent where you could put you'd be a dick and put Ruthless.
Yeah, and what's really nice too is that having the hard turns red on the Defender can actually be something that you catch somebody off guard. I mean, a hard one on a Defender and then pattern analyzing it into a boost or a barrel roll to outmaneuver your opponent who's expecting you to do a K turn. A really good way to catch your opponent off guard.
All right, so I'll give you that. There you go. That's very good, George. I did not think about that.
But what you got here is a very solid starting list. This is a good skeleton to work off of, and that's what we're saying. Loadouts are more of what's your style of play. So this is something that we're also teaching newer players too. It's preference.
Yep.
Basically.
Mm-hmm. That's kind of the same thing with Iden. Instead of the cannon, you put the cluster missiles on, right? Because it allows people to shoot more than one time. That's really one of the bigger things with this list, and the cluster missiles on each of them. It allows you to have multiple shots, so it's like having a second unmodded ship, right? And Iden being able to keep one of the ships on the board is super imperative. So I don't know. I think it's pretty good. It only happens twice, but I do like the pattern analyzer. I think better than I like that HLC. Now that I think about it.
Yeah.
All right. So the next Empire list that I kind of had built, and this one's a little bit different. This is to say, hey, if you want to do something a little bit more advanced, right? Than typical, but not so advanced that there's a million things that everybody has to remember. You have 2 Inquisitors with passive sensors. And it's just really because 5 points doesn't get you a lot with these Inquisitors with 1 force. And passive sensors is a pretty easy thing to help people remember. I did put Jingoist on there. Again, understanding and going for the initiative piece of it, right? I have initiative 3s, initiative 4s, then I'm going to have initiative 3 and initiative 4. So I have only 3s and 4 initiatives in there. Overtune modulators to allow them to not feel constrained by taking actions. Faroff, because Faroff never dies. Seventh Sister, not as much for the ability and just more for the force point, to be perfectly honest with you. Though it doesn't hurt to teach them about Seventh Sister, who is very dirty. And then Commander Goron, because Commander Goron, right, gives you the ability to break locks and give out tokens. I mean, I don't know. I hate that damn ship too. I wish they actually had not done what they did with them, but give it a shield upgrade and that thing will live a little bit longer. You're going to shoot Goron. That's what you're going to do. You're going to kill that Goron, and everything else is going to come in and try to kill you.
Yeah, and what I like about this particular list is that there's a little bit of symmetry, right? You have 2 ships that fly the same in the Inquisitors, and then 2 TIE fighters that fly the same, and then you have kind of like commander ships that kind of help expand on what they can do, right? With Goron being able to make sure that they survive particular situations by giving them evade tokens, and Faroff and being able to take up space and being that coordinating piece on your list if you need it to be. Or just giving out those tractor tokens or gem tokens using Seventh Sister if they're able to get that proc that in, and it's a very good list for a new player to kind of understand a little bit of formation flying when trying to flying this list, and giving them that practice because they want to learn that aspect of it, so that way they can become more efficient with similar type of lists. Like if they go over to like CIS, which has a little bit of formation flying with the droids or something similarly like that, or with like resistance wise, this is a good trainer to help them understand that spacing that they need with these ships in order to be effective.
Yeah, and speaking of spacing, you're gonna want to practice with that Reaper too, trying to get that, see if you can get that boost in good places. But yeah, I agree with you. It's also got plenty of ships, so like if one goes down, it's not a feels bad immediately. Like if like for example that 3-ship rebel list, if like Luke goes down, you're feeling pretty bad because you only have 2 more ships left. So um, numbers is good sometimes for learning.
All right, the next one is tailored a little bit more towards only buying a few ships. JJ?
Yeah, so this one here, and this is something that I was kind of like mentioning to Desi in chat. So this particular list here, I made using just the core set, the Sky Strike Academy set, the TIE LN Fighter Pack, the TIE Interceptor, and the TIE Advance for this one here. Although just looking at it again, I actually don't think you need the Sky Strike Pack for this one at all.
You don't.
Yeah. I think I originally had Defender Vader, and then I just switched it, so that's why it's right there.
Oh, okay.
But anyway,
yep.
So this one here, you have Vader in the X1 with heightened perception, Predator fire control system, cluster missiles, and afterburners. Soontir Farrell and the TIE Interceptor with Crackshot Predator shield upgrade. Then you have Iden Versio with Disciplined, Tractor Beam, and Precision Ion engines. Valen Rudor with Marksmanship, and then Wampa to round it off with Elusive. This is a 2 aces and 3 TIE fighters set here. Again, not going for Jingle West or anything like that because you have to buy a separate Mandalorian pack for that. This is just using this here without the conversion kit. So basically using what you get in those sets there, being able to have 2 I6s here, which I made the call with heightened perception mainly because you don't have really any other force powers that can really help you other than instinctive aim. Being Vader, especially with road roll, if you're facing off against another I6, which can potentially shoot before you, being able to use heightened perception to guarantee that you get that first shot can be very, very big with Vader. And ensuring that you can either strip that person's tokens or potentially take them out before they can shoot at initiative 6. That is very, very huge. And then you have your TIE fighters, which are your objective grabbers in this list that can go out and grab objectives and be good. Iden not really having any other options other than tractor beam in this list, but being able to tractor beam an opponent out of a particular area for objectives or into the arc of one of your other TIE fighters that could potentially put in a killing shot into them is definitely strong. Or just being able to just put your opponent out of position for the next turn is very strong. So it's a a good list for new players to go in and understand a little bit of the ace play with Soontir Fel, and still work a little bit with that formation playing with the ties, and going from there.
Fair enough. We move on to Scum, and this I'll tell you, this was the hardest faction for me to build with for newer players, and I think some of it's because there's a huge cost constraint in Scum, in my opinion, getting into that faction, and then B, there's such a variety of things, and interactions that sometimes, like, it's just, I don't know. To me, there's so many triggers with Scum. I think it's one of the hard things. We actually have a newer player at our league. When I first started playing over there last year, when we went back in person, this person started showing up, and they chose Scum as their faction. That's their faction. And in my opinion, they have done very well with it as a newer player. And I think it's kind of exciting because I think that was like their passion, is like, we're only going to buy this one faction. We're not going to buy a bunch of them. And then when the Mandalorian comes out, it just kind of like, it's like, hey, you going to get the Mandalorian? You got Scum already, buddy. You know? So anyway, for me, this was the hardest one, you know. So there's Boba. Boba's got contraband just to kind of help, you know, with doing some crazy things. FTC is actually better, but again, that's a weird trigger that, like, you have to be careful because like FTC to me is a little bit more of an advanced trigger that you want to use, and you have to be careful how you fly Boba, otherwise people are just going to pop your FTC right away. It just is gone. Contraband allows you to do stupid things with Boba that you shouldn't do. VTG gives you the double tap. Notorious is there for you to be a dick. I put Leighton with an ion cannon and composure, and that one I'll give credit to Zach and Corey, because that was kind of one of the things that they had talked about in Scum. Gamut Key with Protectorate, Gleb, and Elusive. I know a lot of people run Deadman Switch, which is fine. You could do that too. But the Elusive I know is a big piece, and that, you know, putting Gamut and Leighton together, like, is pretty good because Leighton lives. Leighton likes to live. Like, I'll be honest, Leighton does not go down very easily. And that's one of the huge things. I wish Leighton had one more point so I could give Leighton Elusive. Because I think it would just make it, like, I just think it would be so much better for a new player to have that, you know, like that piece of it, right? And then, you know, then you have Cad Bane, which you could sub Cad Bane out for anybody else. Cad Bane just taking Ahsoka Tano and synced laser cannon and marksmanship just is a very easy build for somebody to get, to be able to do, you know, to run with. But I think the real key is getting your Gamut and your Leighton to not, you know, only one of them gets to die. And if you don't kill Gamut, Gamut's coordinating Leighton, and Leighton's firing that ion cannon like you wouldn't believe.
Yeah, definitely really nice. And I mean, you got a lot of solid pieces on here. Just being able to this is a good list to help newer players understand the importance of having a support ship and a 4-ship list, so that way they can help out to coordinate and provide extra tokens for your more harder hitting ships, and understanding the range of that coordinate with the ship, so that way they can learn to fly that ship kind of like behind or trailing, or at least on the side, on the peripheral of your other ships, to help them be effective. Definitely a very, very good list to help them teach them that.
Yeah, there's also like stuff to remember. Like, so you have end of round stuff that you got to remember after each shot. Like, for example, with Notorious, got to make sure you remember that trigger. Cad Bane's trigger if he hits. Like, there's a lot of different things that you got to remember.
And that's why Scum is just such is a lot harder, in my opinion, for newer players to get into. But if you have that mindset and you really want to learn it, like, I think Scum is probably one of, I will say Droid Swarm was one of the best things to learn as a newer player. But I won't admit or won't disagree with the fact that Scum allows for some of these triggers that force you to remember triggers you would never remember. And I, again, Boba Eamon Kanan, like, I ran that and hadn't run much Scum before that at all. And I'll tell you, that made me learn triggers that I never thought were possible to remember.
Yeah.
So the next scum list was one that JJ created, again in the vein of how do I reduce the cost, entry level cost for people getting into it. So he has only 3 packs you actually have to buy, and technically you could get away with buying just 2 packs, I believe, but I'm not sure.
You definitely need the scum conversion kit for this particular list because it does have upgrades that are needed for it that you can't find anywhere else. The core set mainly there because you do need obviously your dials not your dials, your dice and your range ruler. But if you have a friend that can provide you all that, then you don't need the core set. The only thing you needed for this one here is the Houndstooth expansion, the Rogue Starfighter pack, and the Scum conversion kit. And we're going to deep dive into this one a little bit. So this is an all Initiative 4 list here. And this one I built kind of on purpose, all I4s, just so you can, the newer player can kind of understand the importance of initiative matching and how they can help, because you can move ships at different times, and that can really help your ships get out of each other's way if you do need to here. So we have Bossk here with Notorious, IG-88D, Contraband Cybernetics, the Houndstooth title, Lando Calrissian, and Greedo with the shield upgrade as well, giving Bossk just that extra little bit of health there. Cad Bane with Elusive, Ion Cannon, Heavy Laser Cannon, Contraband Cybernetics, Zuckuss, and the Xanadu Blood title. And then we have Victor Hell also in the Rogue Class Starfighter with Elusive, Ion Cannon, HLC, and Cloaking Device to combo with his ability. And then last but not least is Endril Shalak in the Z95 Headhunter with Trick Shot and Overtune modulators to fill out his spaces here. Again, all Initiative 4s here. And the other part of this list as well that's really interesting is that because Bossk has that title, you can send Bossk in to very aggressively in the center if you want to, and if the opponent tries to overshoot you to get behind Bossk, you can then deploy Endril Shalak behind you. His ability only works if you don't have anybody around within range 0-2, but it's still a great way to keep time on target on a ship that's trying to flee from Bossk, while you have Victor Hell and Cad Bane out there either shooting 3 dice with the ion cannons at range or at range 1, or if you get somebody in the bullseye, having that HLC shot can be very devastating. Particularly with Cad Bane, with Zuckuss being able to make you re-roll your enemy's defensive dice, and then passing on a stress using his ability is very, very good. Victor Hell being able to also passively pass off stress if he's rolling more or less dice than his 2 agility, really, really good as well.
I never realized that you can dock C95 on that thing.
Yeah,
you can. I've never done it, but you can.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be the national cup. You can do a name pilot. Yep, absolutely.
Well. You learn something new every day. I feel like a new player. I'm gonna fly this list now.
Yeah.
No, I do like all 4 initiative. I think it's a really good starting point for a newer player to get used to. Because it's a good sweet spot, I believe, right now.
Yeah,
I think so too. There is another all I4 list I think that we had, or was it an all I3 list or something like that? We're not gonna put that one up, but there is another one that's actually really fun to fly too with Manaroo in it. So we're gonna stay away from that one for now. All right, for Resistance, we're gonna move on to Resistance. So this one is 3 I4s and 1 I5, and the idea behind this Resistance list, right, is you're flying X-Wing. It's simple. Every one of the X-Wings gets heroic because you have to have heroic, especially for a new player. Shield upgrade. And then everything else is just kind of a little bit of like Ferrosphere paint on Kai, whatever. It's just there. Marksmanship on Elo, it's just there. The idea behind this list is to let the ships live a little bit longer. I will tell you, what used to be dirty is you used to be able to run some of these stupid X-Wings with shield upgrade and hull upgrade. So happy that is not a thing anymore, because that was not fun at all to play again. It was fun if you were that player. Your ships never died. You never lost an X-Wing, or you lost one for the whole game. But again, I did not pick these for the pilot abilities. It was more for the fact that you're getting a shield upgrade, you're getting that middle of the road initiative, and then you get one big initiative, big initiative there with Elo. And Elo is super unique and neat because Elo can do the Talon rolls, and if it has 1, 2, or fear of stress, it becomes a white. So it can do it while it's stressed, but it can also do it when it's not stressed and still take its action. And so that's kind of a neat, little neat interaction. Karakun, the boost, whatever. The boost on Wexley is super amazing. Because most of the time you're doing a 2 to 4 speed anyway. And Kai is essentially, if you could get Kai off and you get a free evade, I'll never remember it for the opponent, so it is what it is. But it's an I4. So really, there's not much to that list, honestly.
Just remember heroic.
Exactly. Remember
that's
heroic.
Easy. I always yell heroic when my droids roll blanks, but nobody ever lets me do it.
Yeah, this reminds me of the same archetype that Corey Heald was running for a little bit. I think he did his mainly with HLCs, if I remember correctly. But yeah, definitely really solid. 4 T-70s with these upgrades is a pain to take down because they are very beefy, especially with heroic helping out their defense on blank outs. It's a really tough list to go through, and because they're all the same chassis, a newer player would have easier time getting a feel for that particular list without having to worry too much about the differences in the dials between different chassis, and would teach them how to maneuver them effectively that way.
Yep. How would you fly these, in a little box or just spread out?
Spread out.
Separate.
Yeah, spread out.
If I were, especially with 2.5, if I were teaching, I would definitely spread them out. I might keep Kara and Elo closer together to just kind of provide some of that, because they had the weird maneuvers that you can kind of do with them and different things. So I might keep them closer together to create a smaller box with those two. But other than that, you could line them up across the bottom, just in between rocks as well.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's really an incorrect way to fly them, other than all 4 in a box. That's an incorrect way. I would never do that.
That's old school flying right there.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, back in the day, that was great,
Yeah.
But, and I'll tell you what, I can fly droids in formation to this day still, and bump very few times. All right. The next one I have is kind of the similar take on the other one. And again, yes, Corey gets 100% of the credit for these lists. This is definitely a very Corey influence. Elo, let's just put it this way: the choice in Elo is Corey. That's a Corey thing. And after having to play against Elo, I will tell you I still hate Neonum more. But Elo has been a thorn in my side thanks to Corey more than I care to admit. So here we have a all I5 list minus BB8. And the idea here is teaching them that BB8 is your objective getter and your bait, and that you get Rey, which is amazing, and you get Elo and Neonub. Neonub with a pattern analyzer, heroic. I put R4 because I didn't know what else to do with those other 2 points, but maybe JJ has a different idea. I didn't know what else you would do with it. I don't think JJ runs heroic on Elo or Neonub all the time, but I think that the heroic is really worth it with Neonub, honestly, for a newer player.
You absolutely built it out the way I would. Yeah.
Okay.
That's exactly how I would build it. Yeah.
And then sorry, my kid was sexy. And then the idea is you have Elo kind of similar before, except for this time I gave Elo an ion cannon, whereas before I gave Elo a the shield upgrade, right? This time I'm like, okay, let's be a little bit more ballsy and give Elo a little bit different of an option. Corey would tell you it deserves the you could do pattern analyzer and then do HLC. But for a newer player, I think HLC is a very hard mechanic to line up. But in fairness, Elo is an I5, so that is a little bit, you could kind of do things in there differently. and that would be fine as well to do HLC and then pattern analyzer instead of Ferrosphere paint. And then Ray I did very different than you would normally do. Obviously, you get heroic. You have to put Fen on no matter what. Fen is an immediate yes, this is what it's going to do. I put engine upgrade on there because it allows you to do the boost for free, basically, without taking that stress. And then I gave it Perceptive Copilot, which I know is, again, not a very normal Ray build, but I felt giving that player 2 focuses with Ray allows you to have so many mods that it's not a feel bad anymore. And with Finn giving that extra dice, you roll a blank, you add another one, you heroic the damn thing, and then you use your force or a focus token. For a newer player, I felt that this would be a little bit more beneficial because now you could teach him the options of what Ray can do to not die. And because if they lose Ray in 3 rounds, they will be very sad, no matter what.
Yeah.
But I didn't feel putting Poe in here was a smart move. Though I guess you could dump BB-8 and change Nien to Poe, but I just feel 4 ships is a better feel for a newer player, personally.
Well,
and I
Nin
think-
and Ilo are 5, initiative 5, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So you have 3 initiative 5s. I think that's good.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
kind of how I had felt. Is giving people initiative 5 makes sure that they have better information when they move. Which is sad because that means we should start discounting our initiative 2s and 3s. Maybe droids need to go down to 1 point. There you go.
No, hell no.
Hey, there's still a limit of 8 ships, so
Exactly.
Hard pass.
Nick, I need to have 8 ship separatist lists every time, baby.
One thing I was gonna mention, since you
Sorry, Nick just called me point seat. All right,
Yep.
I'll take it. Hail Satan. Hail Satan.
But yeah, one thing I was gonna mention, since this in the previous list had Elo, sometimes you just get that pilot that you're really drawn to, and hey, that's okay too. Like that's a good way to start off a build. Like if you really like flying Elo Atsi or Asti, then just go ahead and put them on a list and then see what else you can fit in that list. That's how I do it. My list. It's like I pick a fire spray, and then I go from there.
Yep, exactly.
You pick a cow. You're a coward there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to the next one. I think JJ had a resistance list. Yep.
Yeah, kind of going on the same vein that you're talking about is just like kind of like making decisions on pilots here. This one here, I still stuck with the 4-ship archetype here. For this particular
Everything Chris
list,
hates, right in one list.
yeah. So this one here, I used the resistance conversion kit mainly because it does come with a lot of tech upgrades that you can't really find anywhere else other than buying extra packs of stuff. So it's probably the most affordable way to get a lot of these upgrade cards. Beyond that, I went with the Heralds of Hope pack and the Resistance Transport pack. So just three boxes here, assuming that you can get your your range rulers and your dice through other means. So for this one here, I have Poe Dameron, Flyboy, with heroic R4 Astromech Prime Thrusters, Overdrive Thrusters, and Black 1, and Afterburners, Nenum with heroic Pattern Analyzer R4, just like you built it. Covenel with heroic Leia Organa and R4, and then Finn with elusive heroic Perceptive Copilot. This one here, though, I set this up here just to help the player understand the importance of repositioning here. This is a list that cares a lot about positioning and maneuvers, and this is kind of an advanced class on how to teach how to outmaneuver an opponent or maneuver in a way that you can get into spaces that it makes you unpredictable here, particularly with Poe Dameron here. Now, I kind of sacrificed his offensive potential. Normally, what we see in the meta with Poe is usually he's equipped with either HLC or with Proton Torpedoes to make sure that he always has that 4-die shot. Here, I kind of sacrificed that just to guarantee that he has all the repositioning available. Having prime thrusters to allow him to still have access to the boost and barrel roll actions even while he's stressed is very big for Poe. Afterburners to allow him to still do a fast maneuver, do afterburners, and then still have access to his other actions like focus target lock or barrel roll as needed. Gives him that flexibility to be in different places. And Cobanel, which is a big piece for this list here, having Leia Organa not only affects Cobanel's dial, but can affect either Poe's dial or Finn's dial to make those maneuvers less stressful. And that's huge because you can essentially make a 4 straight for Poe a blue maneuver, and that will help him clear stress, which will help him do all the other things that he needs to, and it really opens up that dial for him. So definitely a really good list for newer players to get in, and just with these 3 packs, have a really good list that can do a lot for you across the board.
All right. So I'm going to go back to that point, Saint, right? And just say some of me thinks Poe should get a few more points.
No, I don't. I disagree with it. I think it's just the pieces that allow Poe to be that maneuverable.
Give me two more. Give me 2 more points. I'll kill afterburners and put proton torpedoes on them. That just say it like
I've actually done it.
primed and that tasty.
Yeah, it's really good, man. It's so good. Yeah.
You're killing me. All right, I'm definitely not gonna fly this list though. All right, so we're gonna move on to FO. So this one, and again, we have 15 minutes. I don't want to be done in 15 minutes because I want to do an Andor episode tonight because I'm so excited about Andor. And I'm not drunk yet, so I think an Andor episode is good. But so this FO list is try to mimic Vader with ties. That was the idea behind this list, right? So you have Kylo Ren with Malice, or advanced optics and plasmas. You don't really need the plasmas. I know you don't need the plasmas. But that 7 points, I don't know what else. Without giving him a few, like he needs a talent slot. That's what he needs. But that's a whole different discussion. And then Commander Malaris with the standard loadout, Scorch with Pattern Analyzer, Proud Tradition, Fanatical, Static with Proud Tradition, Fanatical, Advanced Optics, and Midnight with Fanatical, Proud Tradition, Clusters, and a shield upgrade. And I specifically gave Midnight a shield upgrade because he's worth 1 more point. But I actually think people should be running Midnight. It's kind of like I never looked at that. But I really kind of think that maybe that's a positive thing. That people should be running Midnight because he's got 15 loadout points, and I didn't know that. And it's an I6. It's an I6. And it says, while you defend or perform an attack, if you have a lock on an enemy ship, that can't be modified. Like, oh my God. Like, I don't know. So
don't tell them about Midnight.
Well, I am. There's not, Deslan, I don't think there's enough people that watch this show. But I'll tell you, if I get drafted for NCX League and I get drafted into FO, I'm running Midnight. Just so whoever drafts me knows I'm running Midnight if you draft me into FO. I probably will not get drafted into FO. I'll probably get drafted into CIS. But
I will say it's a little harder to do Midnight only because it is much more of a jam meta right now. But that could change in a few weeks. We'll see what happens. And so, 15 points on a loadout for a FO is really good.
Like, holy crap. Yeah. I'm sorry. Like, that's a shield upgrade, dude. Mm-hmm. That's amazing. I don't even need Fanatical. Like, maybe Marksmanship's better. I don't know.
I gotta tell you, the secret tech that I like on Midnight is targeting assistant targeting, whatever. The 3-point tech.
Targeting synchronizer.
Yeah. The reason being is that you're already trying to get that lock with Midnight. And if you have other ships that have ordnance like clusters or concussion missiles, you open up at Initiative 6 that target lock to have all that ordnance go onto your intended target with Midnight. It is really, really good. I mean, sure, you may or may not get good offense out of Midnight, but being able to unlock that potential for a missile strike on your intended target is really, really strong. Especially when you consider that you can have very cheap ships that can fire missiles, both in the TIE Whispers or in the some of the FO fighters that can carry missiles. That's a really nice option to have an I6 that can take that target lock and just open that up.
All right. That's good. I didn't think about that. That's good. I think I would dump the 2 talent spots for that.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's worth it. So
yeah.
All right. Nothing else about that list. Let's move on to the next one.
Yeah, let's go to Republic. You can skip mine.
All right. Yeah, he's like, Tanner had a better list than mine, so.
Yeah, mine is just it honestly, yeah.
It's 2 bombers. Oh my god. All right, 2 bombers. The Wisp. All right, we're moving on.
Yeah, exactly.
Skip.
So the next one that for my Republic list that I kind of had put together, and again the goal is how can I create something with a lat or without a lat, right? And so the idea here is a V-wing is very strong. This one does cost a little bit more to run, but you could get Barriss in a Delta. You know you get Barriss in a Delta 7, right? And you can put shield upgrade on Barriss in a Delta 7 with R4 still. Like, I'm sorry, but there you go. Like I'm surprised that's not a piece that people have been running. I guess you only get 1 force, but for 5 points, I actually kind of wonder how much that rivals Obi in this one. I don't know. And Deslin, you're right. We could swap Contrail out and move to another Z95 because they come in a 2-pack, and that is a very good idea. If we're trying to be cost conservative, we would dump Contrail and move to a different one. The idea here, though, is these are all I5s, except for obviously Barriss. Barriss is a 4, but this is an I5 list. Oddball in the Y-wing with nothing but ions and veteran turret gunner, which is spicy in my opinion because it says, "Hey, I'm going to shoot something. I'm going to do it." You're right. You could put Plo in there, but I like Barriss better. I'm sorry. I like Barriss better. I just do. I like Barriss better. Damn it.
Yeah, she's tanky. With that shield upgrade, having three shields, 3 hull, and yeah, that's pretty good.
All right, and you could put Rick. That's fair. Fine. Put Rick in there. You could put Rick in there. Might be better actually. And in fairness, Rick in there is probably actually better than Barriss. But if we're trying to get new players in the game, Barriss as a Jedi, just so tasty. Knack. Who cares about Knack's ability? He gets ion torpedoes to start teaching people about ionization. Same with the Oddball, right? And then Oddball being able to shoot. You get the choice. You either get to shoot your torpedoes, or you get to double tap and shoot out the front and then out the side. So you can be ballsy with Oddball and get your target lock. And there's so I think Oddballs, and again I'm going to give credit there to Alex. I can't remember the name of his group, but he has a podcast called Bespin Players, I think. Bespin Benchwarmers. There you go.
Yeah,
Bespin
Benchwarmers, yeah.
Alex has been using Oddball for quite a while, and Oddball in a Y-Wing is really good. Then obviously Obi, because Obi's really cool, and then Contrail to just murder things. But yep, you're right. You could put Rick in there. You could probably do that too, and I think that would be fun as well. But the symmetry really is just the fact that they're higher initiative. That's really it. And then it kind of gives you a little bit of various play with different ships. And again, this is a list I would actually feel. I don't think it's as good as having that fucking lat, but I do think that this is if lats were not as prominent in play as they are now, I really think that this is a decently competitive list, personally. Dump lats, and we'll see what Republic can do.
Would
All
be
right.
nice. It would be nice to see some Y wings on the board.
Yeah.
For reps.
Yeah, and I agree with you. The next one I have is essentially a similar one, but just with a version of Hawk in it. And then I put Click in there because Click allows for you to make things live longer. And it teaches mechanics of how do we stop things from dying as easy. And then again, Mace with the heightened perception, kind of go back to JJ's thing of if you got a ship that's got to die, here you go. And then with Hawk in there, I put Hawk with C-3PO because it allows for that Hawk to live a little bit longer. Hawk is still really good, even with a lower loadout than Hound. And Hawk fits in this list, in my opinion, better than Hound does, because of the initiatives. And Hawk likes to boost, and Hawk likes to give boosts. And all these ships love blues. So Hawk with Agile Gunner allows you to teach people about in-game stuff. 7th Fleet Gunner because you're a dirty, cheating Hawk bastard. And C-3PO and Novice Technician to help Hawk live forever. Or as long as he can.
Seems fun. Seems like a fun list to fly for sure. A lot of little zippers.
Yeah.
Zip around the board.
The next list, I believe this is JJ's list.
Yeah.
Yep.
So this one here, again, this is X-Wing on a budget. I took a little bit of inspiration of what's going to make Nick Sperry flip. So this one requires just the Guardians of the Republic pack, the Lat pack, and the Clone Z95 pack for the Republic. So another budget list, but can do a lot of work here. So we have Obi-Wan Kenobi in the Delta 7 Aether Sprite with Predator, CLT, and Shield upgrade. So that's a 5 health Jedi that can do a lot of work for 5 points. We got Hounds with Ayla Secura and Barrage Rockets and Synchronized Console. Stub with dedicated fire control system, cluster missiles, and synchronized console. Killer with expert handling, dedicated fire control system, sync console, and cluster missiles. And then Oddball with dedicated proton torpedoes and synchronized console. And now this is a torrent Oddball. So what's nice about this particular setup here, this version of Oddball, he has on his bar the barrel roll into red evade. So if you set it up correctly, you can get a barrel roll red evade for defense for Oddball, and then get that target lock since it is a red action. If you have somebody in bullseye, which can now unlock that proton torpedo to be used and get that shot onto your intended target. You do have the Latch that can provide the rerolls that you need with its native ability, and then you can now pass on that target lat that you got from Oddball onto Stub and Killer and Hounds, who is equipped with barrage rockets and has that focus. They can now get those shots onto their intended targets and get the mods that they need to get those shots in there. This is definitely a very aggressive list. But can do a lot of work. Definitely.
Yeah, this is the original version of the Lat before before they went to 7th Fleet Gunner support ship. Like that. Yep. This is the aggressive, like this is the Lat I ran.
Down. Yeah, exactly.
All right. So let's move into our last faction as we wrap up. And this one, we probably, unfortunately, have the most opinionated pieces of it on there because 2 of us fly these lists. So again, I try to create a Vader plus ties list with Jango Fett. Of course, this is my Jango Fett loadout that I like a little bit better because Jango lives a little bit longer, can do a few more dirty things. And the FTC and Contraband is just so dirty compared to Scum, man. Scum Boba wishes he had 2 illicit slots, and Jango probably shouldn't have 2 illicit slots. Let's be honest. If he doesn't need 2 illicit slots. That's pretty bad. But it's Jango with a bomber. 2 bombers and 3 droids, and essentially what it is it's designed to come in here and say you can either go after Django or you can go after the bombs, and you can run these in groups, right? So I'm running a bomber and 2 droids, and then a bomber and 1 droid. That's what I'm running. And if you would drop, Django Fett a couple of points, I'd run 2 droids and 2 bombers, 3 droids, 2 bombers, and just kind of, it'd be fun. Since I officially am point sane here. God, somebody make me a card, like a Planning Phase Syndicate card of point sane with my face and everything on it. So somebody needs to do that. Like I'm the wild card, baby. That's gonna be our intro next week. Design Tanner, the Tanner Saint card.
Yeah.
What does Tanner Crew do for you? Anyway, so anyway, the idea is to understand space recognition with proxies. Point scene, that's right. To understand spatial recognition and spatial understanding with proxies and discords. That's the idea with this list. And Django was just there to not die. That's really what it is.
Yeah,
I would like running. If I were running this list, I would probably like keep DFS closer to the bombardment drones, so that he's within range to like use his, calculates for taking away some crits. Maybe that's about it.
Yeah, and I agree with you. Even though I said I never used DFS, I do agree that in this list that would actually be really good, with that bomber. So. The next one is a version of my Watt list that I used to run in 2.0, which I loved and did not do very well at Crossroads with, but I did love it. Was my favorite list to run. And basically, essentially, it is Hyena bombers, 3 of them. Do I have 3 of them? No, I have 1, 2, 3. I have 4 bombers and 2 vulture droids. So the 2 vulture droids have energy shell and discords, and then the bombers have 2 discords and 2 proxies, and then Watt with K2B4, impervium plating, and composure, because why not? You can put marksmanship, you can kind of put whatever you want. But for a newer player, again, this does a little bit of the spatial thing, but gives them some tankier stuff, and then allows you to learn a ability. Watt gets to No, I'm not Torkel. Stop it. God damn it, George. Stop it. I hate Torkel. What is wrong with you two? Not even paying attention to the show.
Yes, we are.
But this is my version. This is my upgraded 2.5 version of Watt. I don't own 4 Hyena powers to run this list. But maybe Zach or I don't know who. Somebody else runs droids at my league. Somebody else will let me borrow. Well, it's not Zach.
Yeah, I don't have that many bombers.
Yeah, I just don't own that many bombers. Like,
yeah,
maybe somebody will let me run that.
It's a lot of hole to punch through.
Brendan, that's right. Brendan runs droids. Brendan could give me a bomber to borrow. But anyway, that was the idea with this list.
If that'd be something that I would possibly want to run on the table, but yeah, I don't have that many bombers. I would need to borrow stuff.
Yep. And then the next version I have is very much the same thing, except for it is 8 ships. And the idea with this list, and again, I really want to put this on the table. Like, I actually think I should put damn it. I think we hang out too much because we've been drinking and
so. The one thing you don't have the points for it, but I think that's worth adding on Watt is electronic baffle, so that we can like get rid of that stress in a pinch. But yeah, I definitely like this loadout a lot. It's really good.
Yeah, if you get rid of K2B4, you could do that.
Mm-hmm.
All I can say is you'll probably only maybe make it 3 or 4 rounds in the game with this many ships.
Sorry, I know this is technically so the idea behind this list is how do you want to learn how to fly a bunch of ships and not bump? That's the idea with this list. That's it. There's no other idea to this list. Do you not want to bump? That's it. That's what this list will teach you. Hide on rocks. I agree with that. I don't know. The first thing, and now I'm going to tangent a little bit because that's my nickname is Tangentine Tanner. But the first thing that pissed me off about X-Wing, other than stupid Protorps, was flying in formation, right? And now that we don't have to fly in formation anymore, it's not as big of a thing. But I still think that one of the big things, right, is flying without bumping, as much as you can, and flying and landing in obvious spots. And I'm gonna murder all. I'm gonna ban every one of you from the chat. You guys are really distracting. Anyway, the idea is that was the first thing that pissed me off was people that could do that and I couldn't, and I would lose every time to formation flying. So I learned how to formation fly. There you go. There's my stand.
Yeah.
It's rough.
All right. I don't know whose list this is, but the next list has Cad Bane in it.
Yeah, I think that's definitely not mine.
Is this mine too? All right, we're gonna.
Yeah, that's yours.
All right. Here's the next list. Who put the Magna Guard protectors? This is the last list, I swear.
That's mine. That's the one that again going back to newbies here that are trying to like play on a budget here. So this one here, another 3-pack list. Servants of Strife, Hyena Bomber Pack, and the Rogue class. Really good way to help understand a little bit more formation flying and in their first interaction with bombs here, using the bombardment drone here. So we got General Grievous here with Predator, Afterburner, Soulless One, and Impervium. Now I chose this particular loadout because Grievous is going to be your hunter here, trying to go get ships, and having the Magna Guard protectors and the Rogue class starfighters being his flankers to help him survive direct shots coming in, and having the bombardment drone and DFS being able to go grab those objectives. You have those 3 solid ships, all at initiative 4, being able to do a lot of work there with their munitions. The Magna Guard protectors with energy shell chargers and sync laser cannons to bolster their offensive potential. The way I would run this particularly is the energy shell charges I will use more often as a shot against a ship that has either lost their shields, or if they have like salvage and you want to make sure that you get that crit, you're more likely to get that with energy shell charges versus sync laser cannons. And that's why I have that there to kind of help them with that particular objective there. And then the bombardment drones with Blazer Bomb. I ran that during the Adepticon. Blazer Bomb, an extremely effective area denial piece, being able to cover a lot of spots. And the best part of it is that blaze can be seismic by bombardment drone, and once it is ejected out, you can actually launch that seismic charge ahead of you and not get hit by that range 1 bubble of the Blazer Bomb. So that's a very nice way to like place it toward the center, make it like a little bit of an area denial, and anybody who gets in close, you can basically blast the blaze and get them again for that extra damage.
It's cool. I like this list, and I love the fact that you only need 3 packs.
Yeah,
that's really awesome. Kind of keep it on a budget, and I think the only thing, if I wasn't running this one, which I probably would, like I would maybe even cut down the Magna Guards to like the Initiative 3 ones, the Executioners, because they're 4 points. And then, like, I can fit in another Vulture droid if I really wanted to.
We just know that the Magna Guards are going to go down to 4 points, so we can run them. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That would be awesome, actually, if they did. Yeah.
On this list, who would you guard, though? Like, you put
Grievous. Yeah.
Grievous.
You're running in a kind of looser formation around Grievous because they're all I4s, and you can basically tailor to how you're deploying them. If you're deploying them with like towards one of the sides, you want the Magna Guards to play a little more deeper on the flank, so that way as you're turning, they're more facing they're more closer to the opponent. So that way that takes the heat off of Grievous, who you want to be the end game piece for your list.
How about this, George? Let me tell you one thing. They can up Django to 9 points if they lower Magna Guards and HMPs to 4 points. Spicy take. Tanner, spicy take. So
Sure.
Corey actually has built me a list almost identical to this. The Blazer Bomb is different, but Corey built me a list with you can run a shield upgrade and sync laser cannons and independent calculates if you want, or you can get rid of independent calculates on these Magna Guard protectors and then put an HMP with Kraken in there.
Hey, yeah, that's good.
You can run a Geonosia prototype and guard that with Kraken. So it's a 3 green die Geonosia prototype. And they have to kill those Magna Guard protectors. They don't get a choice. And with Kraken, they're keeping their calculates to begin with. And then they all get to share. Everybody but the HMP gets to share with them.
That's awesome. That's actually really good.
It is really bad against like Alpha Strike lists. Like they eat them alive. But other than that, it's like, how about this? My win rate with that list is like 75 or 80%. I did start losing against it and decided I was going to run it for GT. And I'm glad I didn't. But it's like props to Corey because how about it? It's so fun to run. Especially because it's like, oh, do you want to shoot a Magna Guard protector or do you want to shoot a 3 dice HMP shit? Like, you pick. Pick what you want to do. You know?
Hovering around you.
Yeah. Yep. And I've learned that the Magna Guard protectors just have to be an arc. They don't actually have to fly in formation, by the way. Just so you know.
It's
it
just
is
to have
insane.
A higher probability. Yeah.
Holy
the
crap.
reason why I say information is that you just have a higher probability of making sure that you get them in arc with like Grievous.
Yes, but with the HMP, you can run them like that and then side slip with your HMP over here, and then the guards are still in the arc. I'm sorry. It is really good. It's really janky. It's a janky. That's what it is. But it's a really good janky list. And I'm telling you, if they lower the Magna Guard protectors to 4 points, I don't care. Cut 10 points out of them, and they're still good. Like I'll run sync laser cannons on them and put them at 4 points, and I will immediately start running those all the time. So